Hello and welcome to the Permaculture Herbalism segment of the Elder Tree podcast. I am your host, Tonielle Christensen from Earth Mumma, where I teach people how to thrive and get skilled for sustainability. As an educator, kitchen witch, and plant lover, I welcome you to tune in as I interview permaculturalists from around the world. We will learn holistic ways of integrating plants into our homes, gardens, and communities for healing. Together, we will explore the art and science of this regenerative design system and harvest the collective wisdom. Permaculture offers a pathway to empower people to develop their lifestyles and landscapes. So let's discover how to grow and know plants with a purpose. Welcome, Cath. I'm really excited for our conversation today. So let's jump straight into it so our listeners can learn all about why permaculture is an important aspect of your life.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to this too. I've actually been binging some of the prior episodes, and it's actually sparked some stuff that I haven't been doing much of lately and have kind of taken back a bit more of the things that I love to do, like making tea and all of those things. So, yeah, so thank you. I really love that I can chat to you about my passion today. So permaculture is, for me, it's like an intuitive thing that I've always kind of just done anyway. And I guess it's because of being immersed in a gardening household with my mum, just doing what she did naturally as well. And I've grown up with that and always just wanted to have plants around me and grow stuff and do it in a way that was natural and didn't have that impact. So treading lightly on the planet. So it's really important to me to use all the things. I hate wasting stuff, and that's not just in a gardening sense, but in a whole sense of living in that way. And it just makes sense to me to have those practices and do those things. And the things that you're putting into your body with food, and you don't want to have anything in there that you don't need. It's just unnecessary on so many levels. So, yeah, I guess for me, with my art practice and wanting to utilize the green waste that I had from the garden that wasn't always necessarily great for composting, like palms is a good one, and those more woody vines and things like that. It was just a great way to be able to utilize that green waste for me as well and just incorporate it back into the circle so it becomes a basket to harvest the produce. And so it's all, just connected so beautifully, and it just feels right and makes me very happy, and it's just so satisfying to be able to use that stuff that wouldn't necessarily be used in that way. So I guess eating organic food is also really important to me, and sharing plants and swapping seeds and all of those things that are not just benefit to your garden but also that community and connection with other people and inspiring them to do similar things. So yeah, so it's all of those things. And I haven't studied permaculture in a formal sense, but I've studied horticulture, and a lot of the practices with pest management, things like that, used to just grate on me, and I just would be like, and there was an instant resistance to know that that was not how I was ever going to, practice my gardening methods and do the way that I grow things. So yeah, it's kind of like just basically having that community of other permaculture people around me and sharing and learning and, doing all those things, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners can relate to in how they are in their community with their little, neighbourhood groups and things like that too, swapping and sharing.
Absolutely. And it's permaculture is one of those things where you don't need to do the formal training, because if you've got an understanding of the principles, it's so easy to integrate into our lives because it makes so much sense.
Absolutely.
And we when we don't have clear solutions, but like we said, something grates up against us and we think there must be a better way. this doesn't seem right. And we talk to our neighbors and we learn things from our community and we start adopting more sustainable practices in our life, then we're walking the path of permaculture as well. Yeah. And reducing waste is a big thing. You know, what you're utilizing in your garden is actually a resource, and you're creating such beautiful things to close the loop. And I love that, making your harvest basket out of what many people carry to the dump, and you're producing these beautiful art pieces, and not just for yourself but within the community. So you are teaching and bringing other women or people together to be able to craft their own baskets or art piece. So it would be wonderful if you could share with everybody. You just came out of a retreat this weekend, so from horticulture into weaving and having the Garden of Weaving, which I love that name, by the way. That's just so thought-provoking. How did that journey start, and how was it going for you?
It's a story I actually love sharing about the Garden of Weavings. And the origin of it is that I've always had this crazy basket collection and been really drawn to baskets. So long before I made baskets, I've collected them. And one day I was literally pruning grapevines and decided that I could make something with them. And so I just sat down and I started playing with the cut off prunings. And something inside me just clicked. And it was like an ancient, DNA, ancestral memory, whatever you would like to sort of call that. And I just knew that this is what I need to be doing. And so I then deep dive explored into how I could make the baskets and play around with other plants. And the garden that we have here, that we've been here for 12 years, and there are so many plants that were already here in this garden that I discovered were amazing for weaving materials. So I started to play around with these things, did a couple of online courses and just lots of practice. It was actually quite a few years before I even did an in-person workshop on weaving myself. Before I was even teaching, I was actually teaching people before I even did that. So friends and neighbours were interested as well, and I've got one neighbour in particular who's an amazing gardener too. And so we used to get together and just make baskets and play with different things and just get creative. And then I would invite other people over and we'd have little craft nights and, share these things that we were making and playing with. And one day someone in that group was like, you should run workshops. Like, people would love to learn this and no one's doing this. And so next thing you know, we're building a studio in our backyard and offering these amazing afternoons and days of weaving workshops. So it's and also retreats now as well. So I've just come out of a beautiful weekend with my amazing ceramicist friend who I had an exhibition with earlier this year, Pam Gray, and we decided that we wanted to offer this women's creative retreat. And yes, it's just been incredible to see how nurturing it is for other people to be able to share these really ancient skills that we just seem to connect to so easily and naturally. So yeah, I guess the biggest part of the sharing and teaching for me is inspiring other people to nurture that creativity, which is in all of us. It's just what we're designed to be as humans, is creative. So we don't allow ourselves the time to have that in our lives. And I think it's just so important. I was saying to one of the women on the weekends, if I don't get that creative time, I actually, like, my nervous system doesn't feel right. I feel deprived, like this, it's just, I have to have it. It's a need. It's not a nice to have. And I feel like there is a shift back to that. And we are realizing that, this is part of self-care, and it is actually so important to honor that. And the other thing that just lights me up so much is when I have people on workshops or retreats or whatever, it just opens up a huge amount of scope for them and inspiration. And, they'll have new eyes on their own local environment and go out into their garden or in the neighbourhood and start seeing all these things that were there all along, but they just didn't have that knowledge or, know how to be able to harvest and prepare fibres and see what the potential in them could be. So that I just love that so much. And, seeing people rummaging through green waste on the side of the road to collect materials, or, they've had a pile that they were going to burn, in their winter pile that they're now going home and going to, scavenge all the things off it that they realise they can now use. So, yeah, that's, I guess, what inspires me most, as well as seeing what people create. Because when you're using natural materials in this way, excuse me, we all start off with the same materials. There's bundles of fibre, and everyone interprets what they're going to make in such a different way. So one of my favourite workshops is called Baskets from the Garden, and it's like my little pet workshop, I guess, because it's the first one that I started offering. And they are all the creations come out wildly different. And, there's no way you could ever replicate anything that we're making with this natural material. So I just absolutely love that as well. Everyone's always so surprised that they can come out at the other end with this beautiful creation. And often you'll get, a few in the group that will start off by saying, I'm not creative and, I can't make things. And it's actually not true. It's just how we, talk to ourselves and tell ourselves these things. But we are all innately creative. And even if your brain is telling you that you're not, it's just not true. So that's what most inspires me with bringing plants to people and the basketry skills.
That just sounds so nourishing and beautiful. Yeah, very
It really
special.
is.
Very special. And so who are you finding is turning up to these workshops? Is there a theme, or is it, who's drawn to it?
I think predominantly people that are, wanting to explore more something a bit of a different some creative practice. So, maybe someone that's done a bit of painting or crochet and knitting and things, or handicraft type stuff. And I'm getting a real range of people. I've also had a few men, which I love that as well, like people coming along with their partners as a date day kind of thing, which is so sweet. And really a huge range from younger women. It is mostly women, but from younger women through to, grandma sort of, crone age women. And just that's probably like the majority is that older, mature woman that's just got a bit more time, I guess, or wants to take a bit more time for herself. I think getting to that stage where it is more of a priority to be doing the things that you want to do with your time, and enjoying it with the people that you love. So I get often people coming with their mum, like mum and daughters is a really beautiful. I love it when mums and daughters come together, or just girlfriends coming for, special occasion. It might be someone's birthday or milestone. I've had someone come as a group with as a baby blessing, which was just gorgeous as well. So you can infuse all of those beautiful intentions for why you're there into your creations as well. And I love that.
I love that too, and I would really love to learn a little bit more in this conversation on ways to prepare. I think for
Mhm.
listeners to walk away and think, oh, we all have palm. A lot of people have palms growing, so that's an easy one. But how do I get that palm prepared to
Absolutely.
be able to do that?
Yeah, definitely. So, a lot of palm material that I use predominantly is the Bangalore palm, which is quite common in the East Coast, not so common in Perth, but I've got a few in my garden here and neighbouring gardens that I can source from. And we use a lot of the inflorescence. So it's the flowering, beautiful tassels that you see hanging down with the red seeds attached. And once all those seeds have dropped and they naturally just, the big inflorescence will just shed down to the ground. And with the individual strands, you can cut them all off and bunch them up and then soak them in water, and usually for at least a few hours or overnight. And then they'll become beautiful and supple and you'll be able to weave with them. And I use a lot of that material for random weaving and also for twining with it as well. So you can use it in different ways. So general rule of thumb with weaving material is it needs to be dried first, and that allows for any shrinkage in the materials. So if you're collecting green leaves and weaving with them straight away, what happens is you've got this little basket or whatever you've made, and then it will dry and shrink, and your basket will become loose and lose that strength and structure to it. So everything has to be dried out first, and then you mellow the materials is the technical basketry term, where you're adding back that water and moisture back into it to be able to work with it. And some materials require like days of soaking and mellowing, like woody materials. Some things maybe overnight, and some things will literally just need a quick hose down and then wrap them in a wet towel and let them just sit and mellow in a wet towel for a few hours, like your papery, strappy leafed type plants. So, but with the palm fibre as well, I got sidetracked. The Bangalow palm, I also use a lot of the sheath of the leaves. So you see the main part of the leaf frond, and then below that, it's like a beautiful big woody sheath. And it's beautiful. It's like it's been varnished, and it's just got this amazing beautiful sculptural form to it, just as it is. But what I actually do is I soak those overnight. I've got a big pond, but you can use a bathtub as well. And I then remove the sort of woody top section where the leaf is attached onto, and I press it really flat onto a quilter's mat, and I cut it into strips about an inch or however thick you want them, depending on what you're making, and cut them with a metal ruler and a rotary cutter like a quilt on a quilter's mat. And then you can get sort of relatively uniform strips to be able to use them as spokes and different parts of the basket, bases and spokes. But yeah, there's just it is such a rabbit hole, and once you get into it, there are just so many ways that you can use so many of these materials. And yeah, my head explodes a little bit sometimes when I just think about all the potential and don't know where to start sometimes. But there is lots of really great resources online, and there's a couple of fantastic Australian books as well. So they've got a lot of information, and that's sort of where I started out as well with online stuff and reading these books, which I can give you references to if you wanted to add them into the show notes for people.
Let's do that. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, so they will tell you sort of a lot of the detail for the specific materials and how you can process them and prepare them for your weaving projects.
Amazing. Well, thank you for walking us through that, the mellowing, and yeah, there's a lot of clarity. I feel like people could go out and just get started now and have a play
Definitely.
around with it. And so you mentioned before the random weave. What is that referring to?
That's a technique, and it is literally just random weaving. I mean, there is a little bit of technique to it, but that's what they've called it. And it is where you basically just weave like a bird, I guess. You're just adding lots of single strand fibres in to create a big network of all directions and filling all the little spaces up. So you can do a lot of really sculptural work with that technique. So I use that on a bigger scale as well. And as well as using the Bangalow palm inflorescence for that one. And also I use a little bit of the crocus palm and other palm inflorescences as well, although they are a lot woodier than the Bangalow palm, which is quite soft. So they can be quite hard on the hands, and you kind of can't do too much at once because they will shred your hands up. But you can also use like vines for that type of weaving as well. So any woody type vines, like grapevines were the ones that I started out with, and even like jasmine or wisteria. You've got the native wisteria, the Hardenbergia, and like things like even passion fruit, like any vines really, morning glory, the woodier parts from that. So it's fantastic also to be able to utilize weedy plants. Ivy is another one, but I will just make the point about some plants being toxic. So it's really important that you actually know and identify the plants that you're using and just make sure that it is what you think it is and that it's not going to be toxic to you, because some plants also can be irritating. The sap might burn skin and things like that. So yeah, always, if you're not sure, check with someone who can give you clarity on that ID of certain plants. But yeah, the random weaving is one of my favourite techniques. Yeah, I really like it a lot. It's got a lot of potential to go big with it as well for some of my bigger sculptural works.
And when you say sculptural work, so are you featuring your weaving, your baskets or your projects in art galleries as well, or where would we find your work?
Yeah, so I have earlier this year did a joint exhibition with my friend Pam Gray that I mentioned earlier, that we did the retreat together. And we had a beautiful exhibition called Organic Matter, which was a fusion of the fibre and clay. And we did these amazing pieces that we had the beautiful clay, wild clay, some of it from this ground as well, from the garden. And then the plants from this place as well, made into these incredible pieces, sculptural works, and that was at the Mundaring Arts Centre. So you can actually see in the past exhibitions, they've still got it all on their website, if anyone wants to check that out. But I've sort of for next year, I'm going to be working on another body of work that I'm hoping to have in another exhibition for the following year. It takes a long time to sort of get these things together, especially when I'm doing lots of workshops. So sharing my studio space I love with the workshops, but it does give me sort of an interrupted time to be able to have my own work bubbling away. Yeah, so it's finding that balance, I guess, like with everything in life, isn't it?
With everything.
Yeah, and I also every year I also apply to have my work. There's a couple of events here in WA that I always like to enter some work into. The group shows. There's one down in Dunsborough in the southwest called Sculptures by the Bay. So I always try and have one of the larger works, and then in this gallery, the small works as well in that show. And I just put my things into different shows if I, feel called to them. And just have open studios, I guess, is the other outlet to show people what I've been making. So we have Kalamunda Open Studios here in the Perth Hills a couple of times a year, and people can come and check out what I've been up to in the studio, and then all the other local artists as well. They do a little trail, so that's always really fun. Yeah.
That sounds like so people can tour your own property, like home studios.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah, it's cool.
very inspiring. So what
But
kinds of
yeah,
workshops are you offering? You said your home garden or basket. Talk us through the different options that people could come and hang out with you to learn basket making.
yeah, sure. So the twined baskets from the garden, which is a lot of the exotic plants that grow in my garden, that we use to make the baskets. So it's like a little harvest basket, or a little more sculptural piece if you want to make something more sculptural. And I always say in my workshops, there are no rules. And I think because I'm largely from at the beginning self-taught, I just had to figure things out. So I love when people come and explore different ways to do things, and I am learning too. So it's I really love that in my workshops. But I do a lot of sculptural things as well. Like we have a circular wall art workshop where you make like a big mandala style piece on a round loom, that we create the loom itself from as a wreath, a viney wreath base, and then twine all of the different plant fibres and reclaimed fabrics and anything you like to use, even seaweed. I've been getting into a bit of seaweed weaving lately as well, which is really fun. And I do a bit of like the random weaving stuff, and then there's so many workshops. Looping and string making. I've been doing stuff with gourds. So my amazing neighbour grows beautiful gourds, and we did a workshop where we were weaving onto the gourds, which we'd cut and then drilled the holes into to make some sculptural works. Oh, the other really cool one that I do is with the bungalow sheaths. We do these beautiful sculptural vessels. So after they've been soaked, you can cut and shape them and stitch them into these amazing, beautiful vessels. So that's another one that I really love doing.
Hey, this is a quick interlude to say thanks for being one of our Elder Tree podcast listeners, and to let you know that we need your support. For the past 3 years, we have produced over 150 episodes free to anyone who wants to listen worldwide. Our team of presenters do this on a volunteer basis. And as much as we love doing it and will continue to do it, one way that you could really fuel us is by buying us a cuppa. You can find that via the link in our podcast description, and it's a way for us to really be supported by our community and to keep on doing this really important and great work. Thanks so much. Back to the episode.
I also have been doing a little bit of stuff with kids recently as well, which has been really fun. So we do those sculptural sheath vessels on a smaller format with the little kids doing little foraging pouches. So the bungalow palm sheath is like a huge, big thing. Some of them are like taller than me. But the golden cane palm is also producing a sheath that is exactly the same but in a miniature form, so it's absolutely perfect for kids. So we make these little mini pouches that they can have a little tie that they can wear them around their waist and collect their foraging things as they go on their way, or you can hang it on a wall and have it like a little wall pouch that you can pop things into. So they are really fun to make. And yeah, so I've got some more workshops coming up next year with youth that I'm doing through one of the community arts centres. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that'll be like a 5-week program, I think we're looking at the moment. So I'll be able to sort of do things over, not just one workshop, which will be nice to be able to work with the same kids and do a bit like extend them and, work on one thing over a couple of weeks to give us a bit more time. Because it is a slow process, basketry. It's not an instant, quick thing. And I think that's why we get so much out of it, because it does just slow us down in this crazy, busy world that we're living in. So, yeah, lots of workshops. Lots more to come, I'm sure, that will be brewing in my creative brain that I'd like to offer down the track too. So I just came back in September from a 4-day immersion with 150 other basket makers in Tasmania, which was absolutely mind-blowing. So we had all of the states bringing every 2 years they have what they call the national gathering, and so all the basket people in Australia, there was actually people there from New Zealand and the US as well. It was just so inspiring, and we all share workshops and skills and connect, and it's just wonderful. So I've got a few new tricks up my sleeve from things that I've learnt there, and I will be practicing those and offering those in the new year as well.
It really sounds like the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely.
And that it's an obtainable craft for anybody of any age. And
It really is.
How soothing it is to our soul, especially for younger children, to have a project that has like the chaos and the mess and bringing it all together and defining and creating this unique thing of theirs. I love the pouch idea, and yeah, it's really beautiful work that you're doing there. I'm wondering, as as far as you spending so much time with plants and using them in a way to create art and functional items as well, is there, from a herbalism perspective, any other plants that you integrate into your life or your community?
When I have my workshops, there is always a pot of lemon myrtle tea. I have this beautiful lemon myrtle tree just outside the studio, and often people, it's not so common in WA as it is in the East Coast, the lemon myrtle, and people just love it. And so I will send them on their way with a sprig to make their own tea. Um, yeah, and for our retreat, actually, I did a beautiful blend. And actually, I think this was very elder tree inspired. I did a beautiful blend with the lemon myrtle, and I had mint and tulsi and sage, and then rose petals and calendula petals from the garden, which we did up in these beautiful little blends for our inspiration tea for the retreat, which was just beautiful. But yeah, I mean, I'm just there's always, I guess, like you say, plants are just such a huge part of my life, and this is just such an extension of that. And when people come for workshops, it definitely, like, we do a big tour of the garden and we'll just be picking things along the way. So I think gardens are definitely meant to be shared, and I just love that I have the opportunity, and it's like a gateway, I guess, for other people to embrace that sort of lifestyle as well. Even if it's just a little taste of it, it might spark something and they'll go away and decide, oh, I'm going to get a little pot and grow some of that stuff and make my own tea or whatever. So it's, I think, integrating plants into my life is just a natural way of being. But I often take that for granted, I feel too, when I do get people just in absolute awe at, wow, oh, wow, I could do that too. Like, it's just something that hadn't necessarily crossed their mind. So, so I think it feels so good for me to be able to share that.
Mm. And I would imagine there's even people who are walking through the garden and they're coming to realize that they may already have these plants in their gardens or neighborhoods, and they've just not really known that they could obtain a yield from them. So it's the introduction of creating relationship and learning these things and becoming interactive with our environments and our landscapes.
Absolutely. And I just love, I often get people that come back for multiple workshops because they just can't get enough. And I had one lady that was telling me about where she went to the casino. So we've got the Crown Casino here in Perth, and she was, all dressed up in her finery, and she saw this palm inflorescence in the front, like, boulevard bit where the cars drive in. And she was just beside herself and she just had to get it. So she was like, oh, bugger, I'm just going to get it. So she is dragging this palm inflorescence along the front entrance of the Crown Casino. And I think for people, like, just foraging for me has been something that my parents, my mum did, and, Dad was always scrounging through things on the side of the road to use whatever he could find as well. And I think foraging is something that people not necessarily feel comfortable doing, but finding roadside weeds that you can weave with is giving people that knowledge that they can see these things and identify them and then know how to be able to use them. So I think I've just naturally always been a forager, but for some people, I think we just need to show them the way, and they will. And then it's like you have to give them permission. It's like, please go for it. So so that's really fun when hearing stories about people foraging, or even sometimes, you might not have a big garden and you might not have a lot, but there is stuff out there you can find. And I always say to people too, and I do this often, if I see something growing in someone's yard that I would love to be able to utilize, and you know that it's going to make absolutely no difference to their their garden or whatever. You're not kind of being intrusive or damaging anything. I just knock on the door, or I leave them a little note in their letterbox with my number and say, would you mind if I came and grabbed a bit of that? And that they are often quite amazed, and then they are interested and want to know what you're doing with it. And yeah, so it's a really amazing way to build community in that way too, foraging, because you're interacting with other people in your neighbourhood who you may not have necessarily come across.
Mm. And you mentioned before how it's like a remembrance and an activation of ourselves, like when you started getting into weaving and what that's then now led you on this amazing path. And I wonder what is happening in these spaces when, you're talking about foraging and you're showing people foraging, you're giving them permission and they're having that experience through foraging and making baskets with you. Do you find that just creating that space for people to come back to this remembrance, do you find that there is an openness of conversations and things that come out? Like people start relaxing and it just opens up opportunity for a deeper connection to each other as well? Or like what's happening in those spaces other than the creativity?
Yeah, I think so, because people are focusing on that creating with their hands. It's kind of like the men's shed thing, I guess, where you've got a job to do almost. And so the focus of being able to open up and share isn't necessarily so daunting. Not, everyone's not looking at you, or you're not having to speak out, in a group kind of setting where everyone's watching you. You're all just weaving away, and it does just flow naturally, where people will open up and share and connect and talk about their lives, or stories, and how this is helping them to just get through a tough time as well. It just really is almost sometimes a bit of a moving meditation as well, if you're in solitude. I mean, it's quite different weaving in a group and weaving in solitude, but equally as nourishing and healing, I think. So yeah, it is beautiful to see that connection in the workshops when total strangers are, gathering. They're starting off maybe a little bit hesitantly with sharing, and then by the end of it, they're organising when they're going to come back. And so yeah, it is really beautiful to create those spaces and that time if people just allow themselves that time.
It's really special. It's medicine in its own way, just by showing up and having the intention to create something and learn something new and just fall in with the people who are also in that enjoyment as well. And that's been my experience of attending bush camps or women's circles when there is that focused, fun, creative activity, and we get kind of out of our minds and focused on something, and then the trickle effect of the sharing, I've walked away from, with this beautiful creative outcome, as well as so much lighter for the sharing and relating to others. So that's really special.
Absolutely. I also recently had a workshop that I ran with my beautiful friend Michelle at Sisterhood Rising Festival. So this is a women's festival here in WA that's in its 9th year. And we offered a workshop where we were doing weaving and singing. So it was just such a beautiful, beautiful circle of women that, the focus was on your hands and your weaving. So it wasn't so scary to be using your voice in that way, which is also something that's so healing. It's like you've got your own internal sound healing if you can tap into it. So, and it just brings so much, both of those activities just bring so much joy. So to be able to have those together was just, something really special too.
Oh, powerful combination.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that may be even the answer of my next question, which is, do you have an example when you utilize plants to improve your health, or what was that experience?
I do. So for me, using plants to improve my health has been, I guess it's a mental health thing, and it's using weaving as healing. It's got such a calming effect on the nervous system, and it is a moving meditation when you start getting into that flow. And once you get to know the technique well enough where you're not having to concentrate on every step that you're doing, it is just such a beautiful, calming way to spend some time. And I think you just feel nurtured, like your soul, it just makes you feel good and brings joy to you, which, yeah, is just so good for you, isn't it? I think it's something that we all need to be doing. And I really try and encourage people to have some sort of creative practice, even if it's just for a couple of minutes a day. So whatever it is that you like to do in your creativity, I'm not going to push weaving onto everyone. It might be singing, it might be, like doodling on the edge of your notebook when you're on hold on the phone, or anything like that at all. I think it's just like, it's something that we have to get out. And I actually, my nervous system does not feel right if I haven't had some sort of creative outlet through the day. So it's almost like I feel deprived, and it's such a need for me. And I just really would love that for everybody. And it doesn't have to be anything big and fancy, or getting, canvases or buying stuff. There is just so much that you can use. And in my own art practice, I want to tread lightly and be sustainable. So using what you have around you, and there is absolutely no need to buy things wrapped in plastic or, laden with chemicals that you don't want to expose yourself to anything like that. So it can just, I think simplicity is a beautiful thing. And that's sort of my life mantra from a very old dear friend that, I've carried through as I've gone about my life in all ways. Simplicity is a beautiful thing. So just creativity, it doesn't have to be complicated or difficult. You might just arrange a few rocks into a spiral on your driveway while you're waiting for your kids to come into the car or whatever. Yeah, so just, I guess for my own mental health, I know I need that, and I just think everyone does. So just, allow yourself the time and space, even if it is a snippet, to be able to do that too.
We all have moments in the day where we're waiting on something or for something, and yeah, we can fit it in instead of thinking, wasting our time or being bored or being frustrated. It's a great opportunity. And yeah, some of the things we do with our Nature Kids program as well is that, like, even the color of leaves on the ground, just looking for different colors and then arranging them in a rainbow, or making pictures. Like you said, it doesn't require actually anything. We can just look at what's around us and bring that in and bring it into some sort of form that makes sense in our minds and leaves us smiling when we finish it. So that's a really
Exactly.
lovely, yeah, it's lovely insight that you're sharing here. I haven't had um, in the last couple of years of interviews, the conversation of weaving has come up, but it's not been a focus. So I really appreciate where you've brought your skills and your passions and what you're offering to the world, and just, yeah, your approach really with simplicity, and that anyone can do it. And I'm looking at you. The listeners can't see this right now, but behind you, you have a wall of all these beautiful materials. And so, is that something that you do part of your practice as well? Is that you always have, or you're always, I could imagine you're out and about and you see, oh, there's something that I could harvest and utilize. And, nature's showing us at different times of the year when the best, um, season is to harvest things. So is that just integrated into your life as well, just to be constantly preparing and harvesting?
Yes, that's actually a great question. I am very opportunistic. So yeah, my teenage kids love it when I like pull over and I start bundling things into the back of the car. No, it is opportunistic. So if I'm out in the garden and I see something that's, at its perfect time to be picked to dry or whatever, I'll just start the constant gatherer, I think is how I feel actually. But I absolutely love that part of it, and it's actually something I always did a lot of before I even was doing the weaving, and it's given me such a great outlet for all that gathering. But behind me, all the stuff behind me hanging up. So this room where I'm on the computer at the moment used to be my studio. It's like a room under the house, and it's really quite dark. There's only like a little window, and it's tucked in under the house. So it's a fantastic place for drying stuff out of the UV. But yeah, now my husband works from home here, so he gets this background on his Teams calls. I'm sure he gets a few unsure
Question.
what's going on in the back there.
You might be sending some people to your course with the
yeah, definitely. But I do have in Perth, we've got actually an amazing climate for what I'm doing here, and it's most like doing workshops, and I need a lot of materials. I go through a lot of stuff, so I've sort of made a lot of connections for where I can get certain things in a more efficient way, I guess, too, which is really helpful. I've managed to connect to a wonderful farm that grows daylilies, and they let me go and collect leaves whenever I need to, and so I've made quite a few connections like that, which is just been a huge advantage. And in Perth, our climate is amazing for what we're doing here with drying stuff. So over summer and autumn, we pretty much don't get any rain. And I can even sometimes get away with harvesting some things that are already dried on the plant, where I think if you guys tried to do that on the East Coast, you'd probably get issues with stuff already breaking down because it's wet and warm and things go moldy and things like that. So so I sort of make hay while the sun shines, and I'm madly gathering a lot of stuff during the summer and autumn. And I think also because I have such an intimate knowledge of plants throughout my whole life, I can sort of get to know things so well in terms of when things are right to be picked. So certain things are better if they've matured more. You don't want to pick things when they're too young and tender, and at different times of seasons, and things can be better to pick as well. So it's just getting to know all those little nuances, I guess, to maximize the potential in the material and get the most out of it as well.
Yeah, it's quite a deep observation skill that you would have honed in by now. Is there any specific plant or favorite plant that you would recommend for listeners to start with, to start weaving with? Something that's really common,
Yeah,
that people could find
definitely.
easily.
Yeah. So the palm inflorescence, the Bangalore palm, is one that is really common all around Australia, mostly, especially up north and on the east coast, and in a lot of like big gardens as well. So like your public gardens, it's quite easy to find. Any banana trunk is another really easy to use for beginners. It's so long, you can get nice long lengths, so you don't have to be joining a lot, and it's also very strong but soft on the hands. And even like some of your other strappy leafed plants, which are really common, and commonly found in like even car parks and things like that, like lamandra and what else? Things like Dracaena and cordyline, like those really strong strappy leafed plants. You can just start, by soaking any of the dry ones, or collecting and drying and then soaking, and then, having a play around with them. There's a couple like the agapanthus you can't use. So that's one of the only strappy leaf plants that it's got no fibre in it. So it just snaps. It's sappy and doesn't do much. But so that there are just so many plants that you can use. My absolute favourite to use is a red hot poker, and it's not something that's very common here in WA, and I know in like places like Tassie and Victoria it gets quite weedy. I don't know if it's too warm up in Queensland for it where you guys are, but it's yeah, another Nyphophia is the botanical name, and it's a torch lily or red hot poker, and its flower looks a little bit like an aloe vera. And yeah, if you can get hold of that, I call it my unicorn fibre because it is just so beautiful to work with. It's so long, it's like silky soft, but super strong, and it gets these amazing hues of like pinks and purples, and it's just stunning. So it's almost like a variegated yarn, as you're working it with your weaving, you get these different color flecks coming through it. So that's my absolute favorite, and I've had to like source different bulbs and get it growing, so I'm sort of still building up my stock plants to be able to get more volume of that. But yeah, it's a very old-fashioned plant that you see in old cottage gardens, and it can be a weed in some areas. But yeah, that's my absolute favourite, and beginners do love that one as well because it is so beautiful to work with. But yeah,
And so
there are
those colours come through when they're dried.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really lovely.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I feel like someone who's listened to this would be able to go for a walk, even in um, a, a public garden or play area within our East Coast region, and be able to find materials to get started with. Is there, before we go today, is there anything that you could share about what's alive and thriving in your world right now? Because you've talked about your garden, you talked about your workshops and your upcoming, your recent retreat. Is there anything else that's alive and thriving in your life?
I am coming out of this retreat this weekend already planning the next one for that because we had just such amazing feedback from everyone there and they just want more. So I think there'll be more of that in the future for us. And I also would love to start exploring clay. So for my creativity over the weekend, being able to participate in some of the workshops, which is not something I get to do that often. So for me, what I want to sort of spark is a little bit more of learning different mediums as well, just to extend my creative practice so I can weave it into the weaving, I guess, so to speak. And I've also been exploring like botanical printing, and I'd really love to start offering more workshops doing that. So we did play around with that over the weekend too, and it's just so fun. And it's anyone who thinks they're not creative, it's just incredible what comes out on the print. It's just so beautiful. So yeah, lots more workshops, and next year prepping some work, like a body of work for another exhibition in 27. And I will definitely be attending the next National Basketry Gathering, which if anyone, it's not just, seasoned basket makers, anyone's welcome to come and learn. So that one's in 2027 in Canberra, the next one. So yeah, that's definitely on the agenda for me as well. So lots of exciting things. And things just always pop up. Like there's always just things that come along and you kind of just have to jump on those opportunities when they present themselves. So I've just applied to do another festival, a women's festival as well for next year. So I'm excited about that too.
That does sound like a very fun and creative year ahead. And when we air this episode, we'll pop all of the links below so people can connect with you and hopefully come along to these retreats. And what with that retreat is, so you had the recent one was a combination of clay work and weaving. How long do they go for, and what's the structure, and what would we do if we attended one of your beautiful retreats?
Yeah, so my beautiful friend, Pam. She's amazing ceramicist, and so she works with a lot of wild clays. So we did a combination of the weaving workshops, so looking at all the plants and doing the weaving stuff, and then looking at all the clay that she prepares and how she processes all of the wild clays as well, and doing the clay workshops, making various things with those. And it was 3 days, so 2 nights, and it was very close to home, so there wasn't a massive travel commitment for a lot of people to get there. But we're sort of already thinking about ways that we will tweak it for next time. So we might offer people to come just for the day as well, or if they can't, stay for the whole weekend. And we did some foraging, so we wanted to incorporate a little bit more foraging in the next one. And we also did some lino printing and some eco printing with the botanical dyeing. So there's just so much potential for so many creative things over that weekend. And Pam's also a yoga teacher, and she's an amazing at holding space for people too. So she will offer those things with where we do a meditation and a yoga nidra and things like that as well. So it's just all of the yummy things, and in a way that you can take whatever you need from it, and it's in a beautiful location. So we have the property to ourselves, and it's very immersed in the beautiful forest here in the Perth Hills. So it's absolutely divine. We just can't wait for more of that.
Just sounds so nourishing. If I was over in WA, I would definitely be coming to see you and hanging out in your gorgeous garden. So thank you, Cathy. Really, really appreciate your time and all of the shares that you've offered into this space of this interview. Is there anything that you wanted to say today before we say goodbye?
Just fill your creative cup. I think that's what I'd like you to take away from this. Just whatever it is that you do, just make a little bit of time to do it, and you will feel all the better for it.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it now with someone you know will benefit from this information. And remember, we're not just talking about change, we are cultivating it. Through these conversations and through the Elder Tree Patreon community, together we are sowing the seeds for an education centre and healing sanctuary. You can unlock access to our treasure trove of wisdom via our Patreon, so you can do that in the show notes below or from our website. Please subscribe now and leave us a review. It really helps the bots share our podcast with the world, and your support ensures that this podcast and our vision can thrive. To grow them is to know them them is to use them is to love them, and then happily herbs become your way of life. May you be blessed with good health and many plants.